So hello and welcome all dear students to another video tutorial by Genome Biotech. In this video tutorial, we would be talking about the different types of receptor tyrosine kinases. What are the different types of receptor tyrosine kinases? Their subcategorization, how they have been categorized into the three different types, and what are the effects that are being produced upon the activation of the receptor tyrosine kinases. So how does these tyrosine kinases act? What are their effects that are going to be produced? So firstly, we must differentiate that tyrosine kinase, receptor tyrosine kinase, is another receptor as compared to the GPCR. You know that GPCR was a type of receptor which was present over the cell surface. It was always present in the form of a receptor. Whereas receptor tyrosine kinase, these receptors have their transmembrane domains arranged within the cell. But these receptors are never present as such over the cell surface. Only when the signal comes, when the signal arises. See, this is the signaling sequence. Signal arises. It is the signal arrival that is responsible for the dimerization of the receptor molecule. The receptor molecules remain isolated. Both these receptor molecule always remain isolated. As both of these receptor molecule always remain isolated over the cell surface, so they cannot join with regard to each other. They will always remain isolated. But whenever the signal is going to arrive, the signal will induce a dimerization of both the isolated ligand binding domains so that a complete receptor is being produced. Now these receptor molecules has the N-terminal non-cytosolic domain. N-terminal refers to non-cytosolic domain. It is referred to as non-cytosolic domain. Non-cytosolic domain. Okay. Another one is referred to as C terminal. C terminal is referred to as cytosolic domain. It is commonly referred to as the cytosolic domain. This is the cytosolic domain which is present. Any doubt? So this is the cytosolic domain and this is the non-cytosolic domain. The binding of the growth factor causes the dimerization to take place. Once the growth factor arises, it binds, it causes the dimerization to take place. First step. Second step which is being followed by is cross phosphorylation that is going to take place. As the cross phosphorylation takes place, there are two phosphate molecules that have been added and the activation of the receptor molecule is going to take place. This is how receptor tyrosine kinases or the RTKs are going to act. So this is the manner in which these receptor tyrosine kinases or the RTKs are going to act together with each other. Now, what are the effects which are being produced upon the binding of these receptor tyrosine kinases? For having that visualization in front of us, we are going to look towards the animated version of the receptor tyrosine kinase. What is the animated version of receptor tyrosine kinase? How is the animation going to help us to understand the functioning of the receptor tyrosine kinase that we will have to visualize? Okay, so let us move toward the receptor tyrosine kinase. Okay, so moving towards the animated version, this is from the book Cooper. Okay,
Many of the tyrosine kinase enzymes belong to a subfamily known as the receptor tyrosine kinases, which are extremely important in animal cells to achieve their complexity. Receptor tyrosine kinases first bind to a ligand on the exterior of the cell, such as epidermal growth factor or insulin.
see, receptor tyrosine kinase. Whenever you talk about the receptor tyrosine kinase, na, these receptor tyrosine kinase always are present over the cell surface and they are never going to be dimerized. They are always present in a singular form. It is the binding of the substrate molecule or binding of the signaling molecule, such as the epidermal growth factor and other different types of signaling molecules, that causes the dimerization of the receptor tyrosine kinase, the cross phosphorylation, and the activation of these molecules. How? Have a view.
Receptor tyrosine kinases, which have bound their ligands, can then associate with others in what are known as dimers, where two separate subunits join. This then allows them to be phosphorylated as multiple ATP molecules donate phosphate groups to the tyrosine amino acids on these receptor kinases.
See, there are multiple molecules which are going to undergo cross phosphorylation. What do you mean by cross phosphorylation? Cross phosphorylation simply mean that one molecule is going to induce the phosphorylation over the other molecule, and the other molecule on present on one chain is going to induce phosphorylation on the first one. This is a cross phosphorylation takes place. This is what is given in the book Pathfinder, as you can observe in front of you. Okay, just a second. So let us look firstly at this animation.
These phosphates can then in turn be donated to effector proteins for their tyrosine amino acid residues, and this then activates the effector proteins.
This will be activating certain other different categories of proteins. Those proteins which are being activated upon the activation of these receptor tyrosine kinases are called as the effector proteins. It is this effector protein that will get activated once the receptor proteins, effector proteins gets activated. These effector proteins will move downstream and will catalyze the phosphorylation of several other downstream signaling molecule, will lead to signal transduction. Okay, so this one was the primary signaling which was taking place, where the signal has came up towards the tyrosine receptor, and then the cross phosphorylation, auto activation, dimerization that took place, followed by auto activation, and then the downstream processing is going to take place. The downstream signaling molecules are going to take the signal to the specific target molecule.
This is a form of signal transduction where a signal from a hormone or a ligand outside the cell can be converted into activated molecules inside the cell.
Now see this. This is the pathway that we have been talking about. See, the receptor tyrosine kinase which was present over the cell surface is a single receptor. It is not even a complete receptor. It is present in the form of its monomer. The dimerization of this receptor tyrosine kinase takes place only in the presence of a signaling molecule, which causes a conformational change in its cytosolic domain, activating RAC proteins, which is the monomeric GPCR proteins, activating RAF, MAC, MAP kinase, okay, map associated kinase proteins, and then the JAK-STAT pathway or JNK spark pathway could be activated, which can move into the nucleus and could lead to the change in the transcription of certain genes, transcription level of certain genes. It can influence the biosynthesis of different types of transcription factors that you can find, JUN, ATF, etc. So those factors are going to be produced and the cell signaling is going to take place. So the basic difference between GPCR and receptor tyrosine kinase is that GPCR uses the enzyme-based method, the adenylate cyclase method, lead to the formation of secondary messengers that are being produced. Here, the carrier molecules are being produced instead of being secondary messengers. Okay. Secondly, receptor tyrosine kinase is always present in the form of a monomeric receptor. Receptor GPCR is always present in the form of a trimeric receptor. If you are going to talk about the GPCR molecules, or the monomeric GPCRs, which can be presented in the form of a single G proteins, but will never have the transmembrane domain. Okay, so that's
Inside
about
the
the
cell.
animation of the receptor tyrosine kinase, that how does receptor tyrosine kinase is going to act. Now what we have to see is, this one was from the e-learning of Oxford, that is from the book Cooper. Now, when you look at this particular book of Cooper, you would be able to find out that how the cell signaling is going to be induced in the cell. You can find out each receptor consists of an N-terminal extracellular ligand binding domain. There is an N-terminal extracellular ligand binding domain which is present. And to this N-terminal extracellular ligand binding domain, a particular ligand can bind. एक लिगेंड आके एन टर्मिनल डोमेन पे बाइंड कर जाएगा. Each receptor consists of an N-terminal extracellular ligand binding domain, a single transmembrane alpha helix. Okay, this is entirely an alpha helix. Why alpha helix is present at the internal side of this particular structure? Alpha helix is always present at the internal transmembrane protein structure because alpha helix do not require any external hydrogen bonds. They are being contented with the internal hydrogen bonds which are present within the structure of this helix. As it has internal hydrogen bonds present within its structure, so that is why this alpha helix can be effectively stabilized even in the presence of high lipid content environment. When very high lipid amount is present, then also it can be effectively stabilized. Next is growth factor binding induces receptor dimerization. Once the growth factor is going to bind, it will cause the dimerization to take place. Okay, so growth factor binding induces the receptor dimerization to take place, which results in receptor autophosphorylation as the two polypeptide chains cross phosphorylate with each other. So these are the two chains that are going to be cross phosphorylated with regard to each other. As they are going to be cross phosphorylated, so one is going to be phosphorylating the other, and thus in the cross manner. Next. Now, ligand binding induces receptor dimerization and autophosphorylation. This is a characteristic feature of receptor tyrosine kinase. Characteristic feature. Okay. Next. It will induce autophosphorylation and then the signaling is going to take place. Now, how is this process going to take place? That we have to understand. To understand that up, we are moving towards the book Pathfinder. You can look here. Enzyme linked receptors. What do you mean by enzyme linked receptors? These are the receptors that have an enzyme linked to their cytosolic domain. Okay. So enzyme linked receptors, as you know, are a second major type of cell surface receptor following the GPCR. After GPCR, the second most abundant type of cell surface receptors which are present over the surface of the cell are the enzyme linked receptors. Okay, so first one is GPCR, present in the form of a serpentine. Second one is referred to as the enzyme linked receptors. Okay, after the enzyme linked receptors, the third least abundant are the ion channel receptors. These were the ion channel receptors. Okay, like G protein linked receptors, enzyme linked receptors are transmembrane protein. We have seen that all these enzyme linked receptors were actually transmembrane proteins, but they were monomeric. Okay, and they are being associated with monomeric G proteins. Which was the monomeric G protein with which they were being associated? They were
to
being
activate
associated with another monomeric G protein, such as the RAS, the RAC, the RAF. These were all RAS, RAF, and RAC were all monomeric GPCR proteins that were present in the cell. Okay, moving forward. However, their cytosolic domain either has an intrinsic enzyme activity or associated directly with an enzyme. Now, on the basis of whether the cytosolic domain has an enzymatic activity or not, the enzyme linked receptors can be of the following types. Receptor tyrosine kinase. Tyrosine kinase C. They can be classified into like receptor tyrosine kinase, the most numerous of the enzyme linked receptors which are present over the cell. The second is referred to as tyrosine kinase associated receptors. Third is referred to as receptor like tyrosine phosphatase. And last, the receptor serine threonine kinases, receptor guanyl cyclase, and others. Basically, they have been categorized into the cytosolic domain that has the receptor tyrosine kinase activity, the cytosolic domain in which receptor tyrosine is being associated, and the cytosolic domain which do not have any receptor tyrosine kinase activity. So they could be categorized into A, receptor tyrosine kinase, B, they could be categorized into, where is JAK-STAT pathway, and the receptor tyrosine kinase that lacks any different types of receptors. Okay, so let me just classify it out and then make you understand one by one. See this: RAS MAP kinase pathway, IP3 DAC pathway, PI3 kinase pathway are the three pathways that can be operated by the receptor tyrosine kinase. Now, these receptor tyrosine kinase always have a cytosolic domain with kinase activity. So, these are the receptors that have a cytosolic domain with kinase activity present within themselves. Okay, so these have cytosolic domain, have cytosolic domain with enzymatic activity. These have a cytosolic domain which possess enzymatic activity present within themselves. Next, the ligands for receptor tyrosine kinase can be of several different types. These could be insulin, epidermal growth factors, transforming growth factors, platelet derived growth factors that could be present, or other different types of growth factors, such as fibroblast growth factors, colony stimulating factor, etc. All RTKs comprises an extracellular domain containing a ligand binding site. So all these RTKs will have an extracellular domain. So you can find this is the extracellular domain and this is the ligand that is going to bind to it. Okay. For example, this ligand could be an epidermal growth factor. Epidermal growth factor. And once this epidermal growth factor is going to arise at this particular site, okay, then it will bind to the non-cytosolic domain that is towards the end terminal. It is going to bind to the end terminal. When it is going to bind to the end terminal, then it will cause, it will be inducing the dimerization of the two molecules together with each other. This is the dimer which is being produced. Once the dimer is being produced, then there is a cross phosphorylation that is going to be taking place. Once the cross phosphorylation is going to be activated, then phosphorylation is taking place, and then the cell signaling is going to take place. All RTK comprises of an extracellular domain containing a ligand binding site, a single hydrophobic transmembrane protein domain that include a region with protein tyrosine kinase activity. Most RTKs are monomeric and ligand binding to the extracellular domain induce formation of receptor dimer. It is the binding of these ligand that will lead to the formation of this extracellular dimer. The ligand binding to the extracellular domain induce formation of receptor dimer molecule. There is a receptor dimer molecule that is going to be produced. This is how receptor dimer could be produced. Now moving forward, ligand binding lead to activation of certain other proteins, and those proteins which are going to be activated are referred to as the intrinsic protein. So it is the binding of the ligand that is going to induce certain specific proteins, and those proteins are referred to as intrinsic plasma membrane protein of tyrosine kinases. Activation of receptor and its autophosphorylation in its cytosolic domain will causes the activation of several different types of protein system and will induce three major type of pathways, and those are RAS MAP kinase pathways, IP3 DAC pathway, and PI3 kinase pathway. These are the three pathways that are going to be induced in the cell. How these three pathways are going to be induced in the cell, that we have to see. First is referred to as RAS MAP kinase pathway. Now, what do you mean by this RAS MAP kinase pathway? Okay, so let us understand about the RAS MAP kinase pathway in detail. That how does RAS MAP kinase pathway acts within the cell? Okay, I'm looking for that animation. No, not possible for Cooper. Okay, next, just a second. Moving forward, see, the activation of this pathway involves the binding of the ligand over the non-cytosolic surface of this particular receptor tyrosine kinase. As the binding of the ligand takes place, the cross phosphorylation occurs. Binding of hormone causes dimerization and autophosphorylation of the tyrosine residues. So these tyrosine residues have undergone autophosphorylation. As these tyrosine residues have undergone autophosphorylation, so what is going to happen once the autophosphorylation has taken place? Then it will be inducing other different phosphorylations to take place. It will be inducing the binding of the inactive RAS. It is the inactive RAS that is going to bind. And once the inactive RAS is going to bind, the inactive RAS which has an inactivation because it is GDP bound will get converted into an active RAS. What is this RAS? This is a monomeric G protein binding of GRB2 and SOS complex receptor to inactive RAS. There is an adapter protein which is present. The adapter protein is referred to as GRB2. Somewhere it would be written. This is referred to as an adapter protein. What do you mean by adapter protein? Adapter protein is a one in which there is an adapter that is present. Okay, this is an adapter protein. That means it will serve as an adapter for the binding of the RAS to the phosphate groups which are present. The binding of the RAS to the phosphate group is being ensured only by its effective binding. See, this is the phosphate group. These are the four phosphate groups which are present here. Just drawing it with white color to make it visible to you all. And now, specific domains are there. These are specific domains which are present. And it is this domain that is interacting with each other. Okay. So in this region, these domains are interacting with each other. There are specific domains causing the interaction to take place. Because of these domains, the signal is going to be amplified. See, the binding of GRP2, that is referred to as GBR2 protein, which acts as an adapter protein. The binding of GRB2 and SOS couples receptor to inactive RAS. So it is the GRB2 protein and the SOS protein that are going to bind the RAS to the phosphorylated form. Once the RAS has bounded to the phosphorylated form, then SOS promotes dissociation of GDP from RAS. GTP binds and SOS dissociates from the active RAS. It is the binding that is going to take place. The binding of GTP is going to take place. The GDP is going to be lost. As the GDP is going to be lost and GTP is going to be bounded, so the inactive RAS has been converted into an active RAS. And ultimately, a cell signaling is going to take place. Then the cell signaling will occur and the signal will be transferred to the other target protein. See, the caption is very important. An adapter protein called as GRB2 and guanine nucleotide exchange factor, which is present. Okay. SOS link most activated receptor tyrosine to RAS. So once the receptor tyrosine has been linked to RAS, the SS2 domain in GRB2 binds to a phosphotyrosine in activated RTKs. It is going to bind to a phosphotyrosine in the case of RTKs. Okay, this is the phosphotyrosine bounded RTK molecule. See, thereby binding SOS close to membrane bound RAS GDP. And once it has been bound to the RAS GDP, it is going to activate its nucleotide exchange activity. Binding of SOS to inactive RAS causes a large conformational change that permits the release of GDP and binding of GTP. It will cause the release of GDP to take place and the binding of GTP to take place. Once the GDP has been released, the GTP has been bounded, then it will be converted from an inactivated RAS molecule towards an activated RAS molecule. Once it has been activated, then it will be inducing the signaling to take place within the cell. Next, adapter protein. What are these adapter proteins and how are these adapter proteins present? So let us have a visualization of the same in the case of the book Cooper. Here you can find that these are the domains which are present, the phosphorylation that is taking place. The phosphorylation will lead to the activation of downstream signaling molecules. It is these downstream signaling molecules that are going to interact with the phosphorylated form through their thiol group domain. This is the thiol group domain. Thiol group domain. Okay. This is the thiol group domain that is present and that causes the phosphorylation to take place. Non-receptor tyrosine kinase. Now, what do you mean by non-receptor tyrosine kinase? Now, non-receptor tyrosine kinase will be another type of tyrosine kinase molecule in which there would be no proper receptor, which would be there. And these includes the cytokine receptor superfamilies which are present. Okay, these include the erythropoietin and the erythropoietin and the interleukin that are present. Now, these molecules, the next type of molecules, will have non-receptor tyrosine kinase. That means they will not have any type of receptor. Firstly, let me finish the first part from the book Pathfinder. See, what is given in this particular book is that once the RAS gets activated by the binding with GTP, that I have already told you that how the RAS is going to be activated by binding to GRB2 through SOS, the signal is going to be transmitted from the phosphorylated state towards the activation of the RAS molecules. Once the signal has been transmitted from this particular space towards the RAS molecule, then this molecule is going to be activated. Okay. Once this molecule has been activated, then it will cause the binding with the GTP molecule. Once binding takes place with the GTP molecule, then GTP binding will cause the activation of another protein, and that protein will be referred to as the RAF protein. Okay, the MAP kinase pathway activated RAS. This is the activated RAS. The activated RAS triggers the downstream kinase cascade. It is going to trigger the downstream cascade of the pathway culminating in activation of MAP kinase. It will be activating the MAP kinase molecule. Activation of MAP kinase is going to take place. Interaction of the RAF N terminal regulatory domain with RAS GTP leads to activation of RAF. Okay. The interaction of the RAF N terminal regulatory domain with GTP causes RAF activation. Once the GDP has been lost and GTP has been bound, this is GTP molecule, GTP. The binding of the GTP molecule leads to the activation of RAS. Active RAS protein will activate the RAF protein, okay, and will activate the RAF kinase activity. Once the RAF protein is going to be activated, it is going to catalyze the phosphorylation to take place at the serine and threonine phosphorylation. So the serine and the threonine phosphorylation is going to take place in the MAC protein. Okay. Once the phosphorylation takes place, the MAC protein will become active. Okay. See this hydrolysis of RAS, GTP to RAS, GDP releases RAF, and this will cause the phosphorylation and thereby activates another protein which is commonly referred to as MAC. It would be activating another protein, and that protein will be referred to as the MAC proteins. Okay. Once the MAC proteins are going to be activated, this MAC protein is going to activate further downstream proteins, and those will be referred to as MAP kinase phosphorylase. Okay. So MAP kinase is going to be activated. MAP kinase will activate the phosphorylation and will lead to the biosynthesis of several different types of nuclear transcription factor mediated cellular response. This is what we have seen in this diagram. that, see this, the receptor tyrosine kinase was there, the RAS, the RAF, the MAC, the ERK, and ultimately towards the nuclear membrane into the nucleus where it will get activated. This is how the activation is going to be performed. Okay. Now moving back, see here you can find every chapter animated versions. So we were looking at cell signaling. Okay, this one was the receptor tyrosine kinase that we would be talking about. Okay, this is the receptor tyrosine kinase. You can also visualize the different types of animation as given in this particular section. Then there are other softwares which are also there, that you can play the flashcards, the what would be the function, what would be there, how does card shuffling is going to take place, that you all can visualize. Okay, now the thing is that this is how the transcription factors are going to be produced, and then the gene expression is going to be. Now, along with this MAP kinase pathway, there are other pathways that could also take place. Those are referred to as IP3 DAC pathways. Inositol 145 triphosphate and diacylglycerol pathway. What is this inositol 145 triphosphate and diacylglycerol pathway that we are going to look forward? Here, there are many RTKs can initiate the IP3 DAC pathway as we have seen previously. The IP3 DAC pathway will remain the same. Just there it was phospholipase C, phospholipase B, and here it is phospholipase C. See this. This is PLC beta was there. Here PLC gamma is there. This is the phospholipase C beta is there. There the C gamma is there. Okay. So this is the major difference in the GPCR and the receptor tyrosine kinases. You can find here. Here. This is PLC gamma that binds to specific phosphotyrosine of the activated receptor and position the enzyme close to its membrane bound substrate, PIP2, phosphatidylinositol 4,5 bisphosphate. It is this PLC gamma that will cause the degradation of phosphatidylinositol 4,5 bisphosphate into diacylglycerol and 145 and inositol 145 triphosphate molecule. Later on, the signaling will be produced by AP3 and DAC pathway will lead to several activation of several different types of proteins, will lead to the release of the calcium ions from the cell. This is how IP3 DAC pathway is going to be functional in the cell. Hopefully this would be clear to you. Then there is PI3 kinase pathway and the insulin signaling pathway, as well as the nitric oxide pathway. So that we are going to look tomorrow about the insulin signaling pathway. How does the insulin signaling pathway occurs in the cell? Hopefully this would be clear for you all. Okay, if you have any doubt, please write down in the group or in the messages or in the WhatsApp. Okay, so that's all for today.